Barbara Eden just showed why everyone in Hollywood can't stop talking about her at age 93. The crazy things that I Dream of Jeannie star said are finally coming out. Tom Jones' shocking move on her while they were married. The secret phone number of John F. Kennedy. And the embarrassing story about her belly button that almost got her fired. That's not even the most juicy part. Don't believe what you're hearing about Larry Hagman during the shoot. Why she didn't say anything for 50 years. Barbara Eden. Barb Moorhead was born in Tucson, Arizona, on August 23, 1931. Families all over the country were having a hard time getting by during the Great Depression. The people who raised her, Alice and Hubert Moorhead, did their best to live a good life. But there wasn't much money, and the future wasn't clear. Barbara's family background was unique, even though it had some hard times. She was related to Benjamin Franklin, who was one of the most important people in American history. Barbara's parents split up when she was 3 years old. In order to start over, her mother took her to San Francisco. New house, but things are not going well. In the end, Alice got married again, this time to Harrison Connor Huffman, a telephone worker. Barb had a half-sister now, and their family did what they could to make ends meet. It was always about money. Alice, on the other hand, found ways to make them happy. She sang to her daughters and played music in their house. Barbara found peace and inspiration in those times. She didn't yet understand how growing up in San Francisco changed her. The area where she lived was Parkside, which is very close-knit and has deep roots. A lot of her family had lived in the city for many generations. Their ancestors came here on clipper ships and covered wagons. Barb learned early on that she had to work because history didn't pay the bills. To get what she wanted, she began using her skill to help her family when she was a teenager. She sang in church groups and soon was playing with bands in the area. It wasn't just for fun for her. She could help her family by singing to make money. She did shows in bars and got paid $10 a night. At the time, it was a big deal, and she learned even more great things from it. She worked with Howard Fredericks and Freddie Martin's bands and learned how to run a show. She felt more confident after performing in front of real people. She got better every night, and each show brought her closer to a bigger goal. She loved music at first, but she began to think that acting could be a career for her. It was a big deal for her to join Actors Equity when she was 16. It showed that she was serious about acting. It was the Elizabeth Holloway School of Theater where she trained, and the San Francisco Conservatory of Music, where she learned to sing. The year she finished from Abraham Lincoln High School was 1949. She went to City College of San Francisco for a year to study theater and get ready for the next step in her work. Another surprise came next. She went to a beauty show in 1951 under the name Barbara Huffman. After becoming Miss San Francisco, she was all the talk of the town. She also took part in the Miss California event. She lost. It didn't matter, though. She felt more confident after the experience. She had been acting for years, but now people were interested in her. Barbara Eden's path to TV began with a few small but important steps. She was on The Johnny Carson Show in 1955. This was her first big chance, a chance to act on a stage across the country. Television was still new at the time, but getting on a variety show meant being seen by millions of people. Eden wasn't just singing. She was good at acting, which caught the attention of directors, who saw something in her that made people want to watch. She went on I Love Lucy not long after that. It wasn't just another playing job. There were a lot of big TV stars like Lucille Ball. Working with her was something that every young actor would have loved to do. Ball knew exactly when to make a joke, and she ran the whole show. Eden could learn from the best because she shared the TV with her. Eden got noticed in the business, even though the part was small. Her job didn't just happen to her. Eden's mother saw how pretty she could be early on. She told her singing wasn't enough on its own. There wasn't enough emotion in her acts. Acting could help her fix that. Eden took this advice to heart and signed up for the Elizabeth Holloway School of Theater. Her training gave her the courage and skills to play more difficult parts. She started getting to be a guest on major TV shows. In Highway Patrol, Private Secretary, The Millionaire, and Perry Mason, she played different roles. Even though none of these were lead parts, they all gave her more experience. Each new set was harder than the last. A different style was used by each designer. She learned something new every time she was in front of the camera. Then the big step forward came. She was cast in How to Marry a Millionaire in 1957. There were Marilyn Monroe, Betty Grable, and Lauren Bacall in the 1953 movie that this was based on. The show was about three young women in New York City who all wanted to marry rich guys. Eden played one of the main characters in the funny movie. It was her first time as a regular on the show. There were 2 years of the show. The production moved quickly, and since it was a sitcom, the timing had to be sharp and funny. Eden had to get good at acting quickly, making her role seem real and telling jokes. It was hard for her to keep up with weekly lines, but she learned quickly. The show was only 52 episodes long, but it gave her something useful: experience. As the lead girl, she was ready for something bigger by 1960. In the Western romance Flaming Star, which starred Elvis Presley, she got her first big movie part. This movie was different from most of his others because it had a serious plot. He played a man who was torn between his Kiowa background and his white family. Eden played Rosalind Pierce, a woman who was involved in the fight. This was not a cute love story. That movie really made me feel things, and her performance in it proved that she could handle dramatic parts. Flaming Star opened to good reviews and came in at number 12 at the box office. People said good things about Presley's playing, which showed he was more than just a singer. The next year, Eden was in Irwin Allen's science fiction movie Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. We saw her as Lieutenant Kathy Connors this time. The movie mixed action and stories set in the future about a submarine crew that has to deal with a world disaster. As science fiction movies became more famous, this one became one of the biggest in the genre. Eden saw it as a chance to show that she could play different parts. She had switched between comedic, dramatic, and action roles, showing that she wasn't stuck in one genre. It wasn't easy to get into Hollywood, even with these wins. There were a lot of young actors trying to get big in the business. At each interview, there were dozens of other people trying to get in. Eden had to put in more effort to stand out after being turned down. When Barbara Eden played Jeannie in I Dream of Jeannie in 1965, her life changed in a way that she will never forget. The fantasy series was made by Sidney Sheldon and aired for 5 years, from September 18, 1965 to May 26, 1970. Eden became a TV star because of this one part. She played a genie who lived 2,000 years ago and was playful, naughty, and very loyal to her master, pilot Tony Nelson. In spite of this, Eden was more than just magic and beauty. Her work on Jeannie made her funny, smart, and unique. The show was supposed to be serious at first, but as soon as Eden was hired, that changed. She knew exactly when to be funny, which made the show feel fun. The best part of the show was how well she and Larry Hagman, who played Tony Nelson, got along. Tony was smart and followed the rules. Jeannie was quick to act and had a lot of energy. Every show was fun because they were always pushing and pulling on each other. Tony's space mission went off track, which is how the story started. He came off the plane on an empty island and dug around in the sand to find an old bottle. When he opened it, a lot of smoke came out, and then a beautiful woman appeared. She said her name was Jeannie and called Tony her boss. He couldn't believe what he saw. She used her magic to get them off the island and back to his house in Cocoa Beach, Florida, before he knew it. After that, his quiet life was over. Even though Jeannie wanted to help Tony, her magic often made things worse. Things always got out of hand, whether she was trying to make Tony's life easier or impress his boss. It got even worse for Tony because he had to hide her from his friends and co-workers. Roger Healy, played by Bill Daly, his best friend, found out in the end and loved him no matter what. But Dr. Bellows, a psychiatrist at NASA, was always suspect. He thought Tony was hiding something every time something strange happened. Eden's love for the character didn't go away when I Dream of Jeannie finished in 1970. Reruns of the show kept its popularity, and new generations fell in love with Jeannie's antics. Even after many years, Eden played the part again in reunion shows, and people still knew her for it. Larry Hagman, on the other hand, was a great actor, but he did not act normally on the set of I Dream of Jeannie. His moods changed quickly, and his rants often scared the people around him. He wouldn't just complain when he didn't like a script. He raised the bar. He peed on the papers and even parts of the set more than once. This wasn't a wild temper tantrum. It turned into something that the cast and team had to deal with all the time. It wasn't just his bad attitude that made him unpredictable. Addiction was what made it happen. She used amphetamines and smoking in the early seasons of I Dream of Jeannie. He thought they would keep him active and help him keep his weight in check. He had no idea how addicting they were. Over time, they really changed the way he behaved. Even though he quit in the end, the damage was already done. The stories about his crazy actions kept getting longer. He just showed up to work one day in a gorilla suit for no reason. A group of nuns came to the studio at another time and happened to walk in on one of his worst times. He was swearing and yelling while swinging an axe around, not aware that they are there. In the end, the network stepped in. NBC told him to see a doctor in the hopes that it would help. The doctor told him to try LSD and marijuana, but that didn't help him calm down. What they said made things worse. His co-star, Barbara Eden, saw it all happen. She never said he wasn't hard to deal with, but she also saw something important. It worked out for the show that he was so crazy. Their roles became more tense, which made I Dream of Jeannie even more fun to watch. Even though things were crazy behind the scenes, their connection kept people watching. Over the years, Hagman's personal problems caught up with him. He had to get a liver transplant in the mid-1990s because his drinking problem got worse and worse. Even though he had problems, he kept playing until he died at age 81 in 2012. Barbara Eden also had times in Hollywood that she will never forget. The year was 1969, and she was a guest on the famous variety show This Is Tom Jones. During the recording, Tom Jones did something she didn't expect. He didn't seem to care that they were both married. Eden remembered that she told him nicely that she was married. Jones said, "So what?" with a smile. "I feel the same way." There were other times when a famous man was interested in her. She met John F. Kennedy at an airport in 1957. He gave her a note with his phone number on it as a subtle but clear request. Even though she never called him, the story became one of the most interesting parts of her work. Eden stayed professional the whole time. She never let Hollywood change who she was, even though it was hard for her. She did work for both The Carol Burnett Show and The Sonny and Cher Talk Show. She played the lead role in The Sound of Music and Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. In 1967, she even put out an album called Miss Barbara Eden. She worked hard at her job and was successful for many years, instead of the things that were distracting her. But the so-called belly button scandal was the only thing in her career that got more attention from the media. It all began with a simple observation. A reporter said that Eden's belly button could never be seen on I Dream of Jeannie. Because of one word, a silly argument started. People said that NBC had strict rules about it. Some said the network made her wear a plug that looked like skin to hide it. Eden never said this. The story had been blown out of proportion, she said, because her costume naturally hid her navel. The author of Laugh In, comedian George Schlatter, made a joke about showing Eden's belly button on his show when the shock was at its peak. NBC quickly shot down the idea, which made people even more interested in it. Some people even tried to defend the choice by saying that since Jeannie was magical, she wouldn't have a belly button to begin with. In truth, things were a lot easier. The costume makers made a choice, and the news made a big deal out of it. Barbara Eden didn't go away from the public eye after I Dream of Jeannie. She was more than just a famous Jeannie because she kept coming up with new ways to make people laugh. Harper Valley PDA, a movie that was made into a TV show, was one of her biggest jobs after the show. The story came from a popular country song about Stella Johnson, a single mother who stands up to the lies people in her small town tell her. Because the movie did well, NBC chose to make it into a TV show in 1981. Eden played Stella once more. This time, she was in charge of a show that was both funny and critical of society. At first, the show was mostly about Stella's fight with the local PDA. She showed how the town's so-called decent people had two sets of rules, always one step ahead of them. But as the show went on, it became more about her personal life. She took care of her daughter Dee, while dealing with Winslow Homer Smith, her strange uncle. The town was full of strange people, like the snobbish Riley family, who Stella always had problems with. Olivia was smart, brave, and funny because of Eden. She showed a different side of herself by leaving the magical world of Jeannie and showing she could play a more normal lead in a comedy. Harper Valley PDA was around for 2 years. There were hopes that it would last longer, but it didn't. The show got a second chance when it was shown on other networks. Since TV Land brought it back in 2000, Eden's work outside of Jeannie was seen by younger people. For her, it showed that her skills didn't change over time. Eden's work didn't just happen on TV. She became famous on stage too. In 1965, she played Maria in a national tour of The Sound of Music. Some fans were shocked because they didn't know she could sing, but she showed that she had the voice and drive for a big musical. After many years, she did a play called Love Letters, which was very different from the others. The play was about a guy and a woman who wrote letters to each other for almost 50 years. It was a personal and emotional experience because the players read their letters out loud during the whole play. One of the best things about Love Letters was that Eden did it with Larry Hagman, who she worked with on I Dream of Jeannie. Fans who had seen them together before enjoyed seeing them again. They still got along, and the story of love, loss, and missed chances was even stronger with them in the lead parts. This play, unlike Jeannie, was serious and made me feel things. Eden showed that she could move people in a different way. She showed that she was more than just a funny actor. Eden stayed a known face on TV, even as it changed. In the last season of Dallas, she was in 5 shows, and she shared the screen with Larry Hagman again. Things were different between them this time, though. If you compare Dallas to I Dream of Jeannie, which was a comedy, they are very different. Eden's character added a new twist to the last few episodes of the show, and fans who had loved their work together in the past found her scenes with Hagman even more moving. She didn't stop being funny, though. She played Sabrina's great Aunt Irma on Sabrina the Teenage Witch in 2002. This part was fun because it took her back to her time as Jeannie in a magical world, but with a new twist. People laughed along with her, which reminded them why she had been such a popular star for so long. Everything went well in Barbara Eden's life. Love and sadness. Her battles behind the scenes made her the strong woman she is today, even though she became a TV star. Love and family brought her the most happiness and the most pain. Her marriage to actor Michael Ansara took place in 1958. For years, they wanted a child but had trouble getting pregnant. In 1965, they were amazed when their son Matthew was born. Because they had to wait so long for him, she called him their lucky charm baby. Life was great for a while. When Matthew got bigger, things did not stay the same. He first tried weed when he was 10 years old. He and some other kids got it from a friend in the San Fernando Valley. It began as a small project, but turned into a fight with addiction. He tried to clean up over the years. He got help from his parents, went to rehab, and went through therapy, but the problems never left. Matthew lost his fight in 2001. He passed out from too much heroin when he was 35 years old. Barbara was broken up by the news. She felt bad about herself. She was in a bad mood. She couldn't help but think about what she could have done to save him. She could have let her sadness destroy her, but she chose to speak out. She told her story to help other families who were dealing with drug abuse. She wanted to find a good side to her pain, into something important. She had already lost someone very close to her many years before she lost Matthew. Her second child was due in 1971. At almost 8 months along, she was ready to have another child. After that, she heard the news. The child had already died in the belly. She was shocked and sad all at the same time. People didn't talk much about sadness back then. She felt by herself. The pain of that loss followed her around as she tried to move on. Her marriage to Michael and Sarah was already having a hard time. His job was getting slower while Barbara's was getting better. Stress over money and mental distance made things worse. They split up in 1974 after being together for 15 years. She was even more depressed after losing her child. It also made them farther apart. Following the split, Matthew spent more time with his dad. Barbara was worried about him, but being far away made it hard to help. This is when he first became addicted. She felt like she had lost control when she looked back. While she wanted to be there for him, they were both busy with other things. She married Charles Fiegert, a manager at the Chicago Sun-Times, in 1977. Things looked good at first, but this marriage was different. It wasn't long. They split up in 1983. During this time, she wasn't just thinking about her job. She was also worried about Matthew's problem getting worse. All of that weight became too much to bear. Then something strange happened. In 1991, she met John Eichholz, who built homes. It was nice of him to wait. Mostly, he made her feel calm in a way she had never felt before. When they got married, she felt truly solid for the first time in a long time. Barb Eden never gave up hope, no matter what. She used her pain to do something. To help other people, she talked about addiction. John brought her happiness again. You keep going even though things don't go as planned in life. You remember the people you lost and hold on to the love you have. Her journey broke her heart many times, but it was also a story of strength. Many people know Barbara Eden for bringing magic to TV, but her influence goes far beyond the screen. She has spent years helping other people and using her fame to back causes that are important to her. Save the Children, the American Cancer Society, and Make-A-Wish are just a few of the groups she has helped. These groups help kids, give money to cancer research, and grant dreams to people who are sick and could die soon. Eden doesn't care about getting attention for this job. It's about really making a difference. Her participation goes beyond giving money. She has taken part in charity projects, events to raise money, and campaigns to raise awareness. Working with the Trail of Painted Ponies, a group that auctions off hand-painted horse figurines to raise money for breast cancer research, is one of the most important things she has done. Eden thinks that art can bring people together, and she has used her fame to share this idea. She has also helped the Healing Community, which is a group that helps people with cancer deal with their emotions and mental health. Child Help USA is another cause that is important to her. This is a group that works to stop child abuse and help victims get better. Eden cares deeply about these issues and wants to help them. She has said that going through hard times herself has made her more understanding of other people's pain. She thinks that helping others is her duty, and her commitment has made many of her fans want to do the same. In 2011, she wrote a memoir called Jeannie Out of the Bottle about her life. It's a rare look at the woman behind the figure. It tells the story of her rise from a young actor having trouble making ends meet to a famous name. She is famous, but that's not the whole story. The book talks about her own problems, like sadness, loss, and how she dealt with them. In 2001, she lost her son Matthew and Sarah to a heroin accident. It was one of the worst times in her life. The tragedy was terrible, but she didn't let her sadness consume her. Instead, she chose to bring attention to drug abuse. She has been honest about how dangerous drugs are, hoping that sharing her story can help other people. In her personal life, she has also been through other hard times. During her first marriage, she lost a baby in stillbirth, and her second husband, Charles Fiegert, had drug problems that caused her a lot of trouble. She never lost her strength, even during these hard times. In her memoir, she also tells readers about what it was like to work with Larry Hagman and how hard it was to play different forms of Jeannie. She talks about her time in Hollywood, the people she met, and the lessons she learned along the way. The book feels like a chat with an old friend because of how honest, funny, and warm she is in her writing. Fans can see what her life and work have been like through the 16 pages of photos in the book along with her words. People have been interested in Barbara Eden for a long time, and at 93 years old, she doesn't seem to be slowing down. She got a star on a Hollywood Walk of Fame on November 17, 1988. She was given an Honors Doctor of Laws degree by the University of West Los Angeles Law School 2 years later. These awards showed how much of an effect she has, but what really makes her stand out is how dedicated she is to her work and her fans. Eden is different from many stars of her time because she still goes out in public and is involved with the showbiz world. She goes to gatherings, does interviews, and helps out with charity events. Her excitement and energy haven't gone away. When her fans meet her now, they say she is just as sweet and lively as she was on I Dream of Jeannie. She went to the Hazard Fest Autograph Convention show in October 2023. After a month, she went to the Rhode Island Comic Con. At these events, they do more than just sign pictures. For Eden, they're a way to stay in touch with fans who have been following her for years. People ask her questions and hear her tell stories. She also reminds everyone why she is such a popular star.